Good morning and welcome to Inspirational Vitamins, your word for your week. This week, the word is neighbor. But before I get to that, as always, I like to check in to see how was your week and how did you manage through the last week. Certainly we are in a new week, a new work week. And as I wait for about another minute or so for others to log in and to tune in, just want to talk quickly here and find out how was your week, and that I trust that you have gotten all the things that you had planned and you had scheduled to get done throughout last week. This week we have just come through the Independence Week. And like those of us who are in South Florida who have beautiful beaches, due to the corona, we weren't able to use the beach at all, which was a bummer, but it's a good thing in the sense that we don't try to mitigate this virus, at least try not to have it escalate more than what it has been. But in spite of that, I know that folks have fun with their loved ones, their friends, and make the best of what we have. This morning, I want to talk to you about our word for the week. And the word this week is neighbor. A person living near to you or next door. That's sort of the Webster definition of neighbor. But as we talk about it this morning, we may have view a different perspective as far as what could consider our neighbor. I want to begin this morning by asking a question. Who is your neighbor? By the way, I want to extend even that question even further out by asking, do you know your neighbor? In recent times, we have seen disaster one after the other. And it seemed like in most cases when we have tragic things happen in our community and even in the country, we find that opportunity to get to know a neighbor. From 9/11 to here in South Florida, the MSD, Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School shooting, and even hurricane, which we have every year. It seemed like those moments and those events, we seems to get acquainted with our neighbors even than ever before. I remember a few years ago when Hurricane Hermine came to South Florida, and it was a Category 1 at the time. We lost power in our community for about a week. And for the first time, I got to know all the neighbors that were on the street that we were living at. In fact, we did what we call a potluck that morning, or that weekend, in the cul-de-sac of the street. Everyone bring out their grill, and some were doing barbecue ribs, some were doing chicken, some were doing hot dogs and hamburgers. And we all share as a community. And I think that was such a fun day, a fun event that we had as neighbors. This week, the focus is neighbor. Do we need some disaster for us to know our neighbors? And I would say no. It shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't have to wait until something happened that is disastrous for us to get out and get acquainted with our neighbor. In the 21st century that we are living in, we see technology and social media. Many people do things so that they can post it online and get likes and get hundreds or thousands of people to like what they have posted when they do that on social media. But doing things that are good for your neighbors don't have to be affirmed by the public for it to be valid or valuable. But doing things from the heart with no expectation of any return is far more significant than doing it for applause. This past week, I was in the grocery store, and I saw a woman in the store, and she had a basket with her, and but it was empty. So I figured maybe she had just gotten to the store and haven't started shopping as yet. But as it turns out, in probably less than a minute after that thought came to my head, she walked up to me, and from a distance, she had spoke, but I didn't hear what she said because, of course, we were wearing masks, and she was at a distance. So she leaned over, and she said, can you help me with some grocery? Now, I've never had someone in a grocery store approach me and ask me for some help with groceries. I mean, we have seen people on the corner of the street, you know, they're asking for money, the panhandlers and all of that, but this was a woman who didn't seem like she was homeless. She looks fairly okay. And she looks a little timid when she came up to me because she wasn't sure what my response would be. And usually I don't walk with cash, you know, in my pocket usually. But I had my wallet and I took it out, and I have a few dollars in there, and I just took it out, and I started counting it, and I said, you know what, I just gonna give it to her. Whatever I had, and I gave it to her, maybe about $8-10. I'm not sure exactly how much it was. And I gave it to her, and she said, thank you, and she walked off. And obviously, I'm observing her because she's shopping, and she tried to approach another person, and as it turns out, you know, the person just walked away from her. But as I was getting ready to check out, and I walk up to the cash register, I saw that she was standing at the meat department, and she was asking one of the guys there, you know, she was making a purchase of something. And that moment I realized that I didn't know this woman from Adam, but immediately at that point she becomes my neighbor. So I said earlier that neighbors are defined that the person next door to us by definition, but neighbors doesn't have to be someone live beside us. It could be someone who is in need and you just happen to meet that need, and that person can become your neighbor. So as you go through this week, sometimes we have seen things, or we have seen people in need, and we may blow it off because obviously we don't know if it's genuine, or we don't know if this person is really going to use whatever, you know, if we give them cash, what they're going to use it for. But I think if we realize that there are people out there that oftentimes are hurting, and they don't always know the right source to go to. And you may be that person that the only person that may give them anything at that point, that they can either purchase something like this woman I saw in the store. I don't know if she got any money from anyone else. I didn't stick around to see who she's asking. But she was very uncomfortable doing this. But I want to say to you this week, as you go through your week, remember, the person beside you may be okay. That neighbor right beside you may be fine. They may not in need of anything. But when you walk out to the store, when you walk out to the, you know, wherever you go, shopping or the post office or other places, you may see someone who may desperately need your help. That person could be your neighbor. So finally, find a neighbor this week. Make the first move, and you will be pleasantly surprised that your move may inspire others to do even more than what you have done. Because in this time that we're in, where people are shut in, people are locked in, and people are making the necessary effort to make sure that they're are not exposing themselves or overexposing themselves. But in the midst of that, there are needs that people have. And you could be that person that help that person with that need that they have. It doesn't have to be finance. It could be other things that they so desperately need. Make that person this week your neighbor. And I guarantee you, you'll find that so fulfilling, so rewarding, because you didn't plan it, you weren't expecting it, but you're able to respond to someone who have a need, that they can walk away feeling good. That, you know what, I didn't know the person. I've never met them before. I've never talked to them. I don't know where they're from, but they were able to answer that request that I have. As always, share this with your friends, with your family, your loved ones, and those you connect with on social media. And join me next week, same time, same place. Until then, have a great week.